Hello. Continued reading from the autobiography of Emperor Haile Selassie, My Life and Ethiopia's Progress. This episode is so much close to my heart and it's very important. It's about the setting up of constitution, which the emperor wrote down as such. And I'm going to read the chapter now. Chapter 29 about our setting up a constitution. In former times, when kings ruled the people according to their own will, be it in Europe, Asia, Africa, there used to be a good deal of upheaval and divergence between the kings and the people as well as members of the royal family. The history of the governance of many countries demonstrated this. In our country, in Ethiopia, it used to be done likewise. We had therefore been contemplating the promulgation of constitution for our reign, to bequeath to our heirs a form of rule that is based on law, and to bring our people into partnership in the work of government. In fact, while we were still crown prince and regent plenipotentiary of the Ethiopian realm, we had told Queen Zewditu that it would be of great benefit to the government and the people if a constitution were established. But some of the great nobles to whose advantage it was to rule the country without a constitution had pretended that it would diminish the dignity and authority of Queen Zewditu if a constitution were set up. For this reason, our plan had remained unfulfilled. At this time, although we were regent plenipotentiary, there were complex circumstances involved. Before tackling any major affairs, I used to inform Her Majesty Empress Zewditu. If she accepted the matter, I arranged for it to be carried out at once. Yet if she did not approve, I did not wish to upset her and do things by force, insisting that I was regent plenipotentiary, but rather to convince her by repeatedly reverting to the matter. This arose from the consideration that it was necessary to be careful lest disturbances or bloodshed should occur in the country. Hence, I patiently delayed the establishment of constitution. But after the death of Queen Zewditu on the 2nd of April 1930, that is European calendar, we inherited crown and throne by due process of law and therefore decided to set up the constitution. We had planned earlier on during our regency. Hence, we examined the constitution of various different countries and chose people who possessed experience and knowledge of foreign countries, as well as those versed in the customs and early history of each province inside the country, and commanded them to select and extract from the constitutions of foreign countries what was appropriate for the Ethiopian people, and then to submit recommendations to us. When this had been set down in writing and had been presented, we examined them and then gave order to the following persons to make a joint study and to submit them prepared for signature. From amongst the nobles were Ras Kasa Hailu, Ras Haile Tekla Haimanot, Ras Siyu Mengesha, Ras Gugsa Araya, Ras Emru Haile Selassie. From amongst the ministers, the Minister of War, Fitaurari Beru Gabriel, the Minister of Interior, Bitweded Welde Tzadik Goshu, the Foreign Minister, Blatta Nega Herui Welde Selassie, the Minister of Pen, ጸሐፌ ትእዛዝ ወልደ መስቀል ታሪኩ. From among the officials, there were ደጃዝማች የገዙ በሀብቴ፣ ቢየሮድ ተክለ ሐዋርያት. These men, who had been instructed to investigate the matter and then to present it ready for signature, had remained disunited in their views and had therefore spent a great deal of time arguing in our presence. Ras Emru, alone amongst the nobles, had shared the opinions of the ministers and officials, while the remaining 4 nobles were united amongst themselves in rather different view. The opinion of the nobles was that Ethiopia, having been divided into various large provinces, each should be given as hereditary property to the nobles, passing on from generation to generation, that their descendants should not be disinherited unless it were proved against them that they had committed some serious criminal act against the emperor or the government, that the provincial landowners within their domain, having the region they had recognized as their hereditary property, should continue to pay taxes to the nobles and remain subservient to them. In general, this connotes a feudal form of government. I have to make a point here of this passage where is explaining the feudal form of governance. The revolution that happened later on in the 40 years later in Ethiopia by a military coup was exactly that, because they wanted to overthrow the feudal system. But here was the emperor 14 years earlier designing a constitution and weighing in different forms of government. Continued reading. But the opinion of the ministers and officials was as follows. In Ethiopia, divided into respective large provinces, were given as if Ethiopia, divided into its respective large provinces, were given as hereditary property to the nobles and landowners, passing on from generation to generation, and if it were claimed that appointments were limited to their descendants, how was there to be a rising generation in the future? If a man has studied and given service and yet does not obtain office or administrative appointment, how can they say Ethiopia is my country? Therefore, let the present nobles and landowners, unless some wrongdoings is proved against them, stay on in their office of governor only. But if they are dismissed for some misdemeanor or they die, then let any Ethiopian who possesses the knowledge and ability be appointed to their governorship. For succession within the family is not a proper procedure. But if the sons are found to be like other men in the knowledge and in service, then let the emperor in his wisdom appoint them to their father's governorship or other post of rank. Yet it does not appear to us proper for it to be laid down in the constitution that their governorship should pass from father to son as hereditary property. When the nobles saw that the ministers and officials did not accept the opinion they had submitted, they put forward as an alternative the following plan, under which it would be laid down in the constitution that some district rights only out of the many within the governorship would pass on as hereditary. But for ministers and officials, but the ministers and officials refused to accept this view and remained steadfast in their earlier opinion. When we heard that the men whom we had selected for this task remained divided in their opinion, we arranged that both sides should submit their proposals together with supporting evidence in writing. After we had examined the matter, we decided as follows. The emperor may assign hereditary land rights and land held as a fief either to nobles or to other servants of the realm. A paragraph to this effect is to be written into the constitution, and in future things are to be arranged as required, having regard to their services. But so we explained to the nobles it was no longer proper that, since we were aware that feudal rule had ceased in the world, we should now once again reaffirm it, either having it laid down in the constitution or governing without a constitution. Once matters had been clarified, they were to be written down and prepared for signature. Yes, as his was a supreme power as king and later emperor, of course, he took the final decision to have a kind of agreement between the nobles and the ministers and officers about the contentious issue of land rights and hereditary titles. Afterwards, we arranged for nobles and ministers, army commanders and provincial governors, chiefs, bishops, and savants. Savants means learned people, not necessarily educated in modern sense, for all to assemble at an important ceremony. Then the constitution, which had been prepared for signature, was read out to them all, affirmed their view with one voice: we like it, let it be set up. Nevertheless, in Ethiopia for some 3,000 years, since the days of Menelik I, the customary method of rule was not a king who governed by a constitution, having set up a parliament, but an emperor who governed by his own authority alone. Some men who were our particular friends did not understand the matter, and therefore they advised me with sincerity as follows. How can you, by your own action, hand over to the people your authority of government? Please cause this to be stopped. When I explained things to them, to the best of my ability, they accepted the argument. When the 9th day of Hamle, 1923, which is 16th of July, 1931, was fixed as the date for the signing of the Constitution. So 16th of July, 1931, the first Constitution was to be signed. We gave orders to our ministers of pen to inform the senior officials and to our foreign minister to notify foreign diplomats. Oops. Okay, so I'm going to continue reading what the Minister of Finance, Björn Teklahawariat, then addressed to the congregation at the signing of the Constitution. It follows as, it, yeah, Your Majesty, the idea which has been realized in Ethiopia this year and the plan which has been initiated is of a kind which has never before been carried out in any country in the world at any time whatsoever. A level towards which Ethiopia did not progress in 2 or 3 centuries, but has been brought about by Your Majesty in one rapid march forward, thus causing her to reach a high and lofty rank. This was very close to the heart of the emperor and very important because his whole reign, from the beginning when he was just a regent under Empress Zewditu, and he went to the European countries for state visit, from then on, he aimed to civilize and modernize and educate his people. So, yeah, this is very important. The abundant benevolence which you have up to now shown to each one of us has been astonishing. But today's instance, while not excluding anyone, extends to the entire Ethiopian people all at once and is truly amazing. Because this has been accomplished in our time and he has granted us to see and to hear it. Our good fortune will assuredly be well remembered. It can therefore not be doubted that it will serve to glorify our time, not only for Your Majesty's sake, but even for ours. It will bring honor to future generations that come after us. Although Ethiopia has found a source of life that will secure her existence henceforth, and while her power develops, she is able to give out light uninterruptedly, shining forth like a sun forever. Therefore, all those inquiring into world affairs, both men of the present time and those to arise in the future, are full of unceasing admiration for the kindness unexampled in the world which Your Majesty has done to Ethiopia. Quite suddenly, with no one expecting it, by your free will and benevolence, while only your understanding and study, your sincere mind and obvious intelligence were guiding you, history will judge you above the good and wise kings. It's more than 3,000 years that Ethiopia has been known in its nationhood. From that time till today, Ethiopia has stretched out her hand towards God. This is from Psalm 68 in the Bible, and has been waiting patiently for some great benefits. And it's only now that God has caused her at Your Majesty's hand to be favored by the divine blessing. It is by his creating the whole world which inviolable and firm laws determined forever that the Creator causes us to believe in his existence and supreme rulership. It's through manifesting by thorough study, the Creator's law, and through observing it that man's greatness is particularly recognized. In this way, he brings honor upon himself and also serves his fellows. To confirm suitable benefits upon Ethiopia, nothing better could be done than to set up a constitution. Nobody will fail to appreciate that it was because Your Majesty was above all convinced that no greater benefit appropriate for Ethiopia could be found, that by your own will you established a basis for the foundation of your government and determined a constitution for the governance of the people, and not on account of some fanciful or other reason. With all this, while all this was planned not only for those of us who are alive now, we realize that it was done with a view to safeguard the independence of the coming generations. Hence, our gratitude is sincere. Since Your Majesty is convinced that laying a foundation for government and setting up a pillar of law is the main consideration required for safeguarding our generation, we natives of Ethiopia and all your subjects are able to appreciate and to assess the value of this and to recognize the advantages which you have wrought for us. Therefore, all your toil will not be in vain, but for the favor which you have done for us, who live at the present time, can we ever know how to make an adequate return? Or can a counter favor, whatever it may be, ever be sufficient? I request Your Majesty graciously to accept my sincere gratitude, which I present before your throne, for having permitted me, your humble servant, the interpretation of this great concept before this august assembly. Your Highnesses, the Princes, Your Excellencies, the chiefs and officials, what I request of you now is to permit me to explain to you the interpretation of the thoughts underlying the decree promulgated on 16 July, so that you may be aware of the profundity and subtlety of the idea of who is to be the first beneficiary of it, and what we are to do to render adequate return for His Majesty's great favor. And I'll stop my reading there. I will come back with other chapters regarding the detailed detailed constitution, and yeah, keep tuning in and listening to my videos, reading Emperor Haile Selassie's memoir, autobiography, my life and Ethiopia's progress. I invite the Ethiopian people, I invite the Eritrean people to realize that our power lies in our constitution, in our vote, in our voice, like the emperor said, inviting the people to participate in the governance of the country. Thank you.